With Windows 2003, there are three basic ways you can implement firewall features. Let's take a look at all three in closer detail. First of all, you have something called TCP/IP filtering. That's where you go to your LAN connection and look at the TCP/IP properties. On the advanced section of TCP/IP properties, we have an options tab. So it's kind of buried in here, but here's TCP/IP filtering. Looking at the properties of this, we have a checkbox here that says we can enable TCP/IP filtering. Now, when you enable TCP/IP filtering, notice it says for all adapters. So regardless of how many NIC cards you have in the computer, this will affect all adapters. So you want to be careful with TCP/IP filtering because this is a restrictive way of firewalling. If you click on permit only, you have now denied all traffic except for what you specify here. So we can permit only ports that you add in. So if we add in port 80 here, what we're saying is that we will now only allow web traffic going to and from all adapters in the computer. Now, that's a very restrictive way to do firewalling. So there's some limitations here. You can't get very granular with your firewall. But this can give you a possible simple way to block traffic. Let's take a look at our second way to implement firewalling. Cancel out a lot of features here. Back to our local area connection properties. Now, on every connection you have, you're going to have an advanced tab with XP or 2003, which has the Internet Connection Firewall. So if we enable this, we can now click on Settings and configure the Internet Connection Firewall. The ICF allows all internally initiated traffic to go out and have their responses come back through the firewall. The ICF by default blocks all externally initiated traffic. That can cause some serious problems in a business network when you're trying to communicate with your computers. So actually within a business network, typically you disable the Internet Connection Firewall. Now if you're at home, for example, you want a simple firewall, fantastic. Let's go ahead and set this up. And with the ICF, you can allow certain ports through the firewall. Again, any externally initiated requests. So somebody on the internet, if they contact you on port 80, for example, on the web server HTTP port, then you can specify to allow that information to come into your computer if you're hosting web pages or to some other internal computer past your firewall. And the same for any of these other ports as well. So you can allow particular services through your firewall selectively. You can also add in your own port or service if it's not predefined here. So you click on Add and describe the service, which computer is providing that service. Is it your computer or some other internal computer? And what's the port number? What are the port numbers coming and going? Some other ICF features is logging. You can implement logging for more information on your firewall. This can help you troubleshoot if someone's trying to possibly get into your machine. So you can enable stronger logging. Also, you can specify a limit to the size of the log. If you're concerned about, again, somebody trying to get into your computer, you can certainly increase the size of the log to make sure you're capturing all possible events. And finally, the ICMP tab allows you to specify how ICMP packets will be allowed through the firewall. For example, nothing is checked. So if someone outside, we'll say someone on the internet, tries to ping your computer, then they will get no response. So if you say allow incoming echo request, then your computer will respond to a ping. And so there's a variety of utilities that can use ICMP, and so you would select the appropriate setting for the various tools. Finally, we have a third way to firewall our computers, going into routing and remote access. With routing and remote access, we have packet filtering. So in the console underneath IP routing, in the general area, we have our interfaces listed. You can right-click an interface and choose properties. On the properties page here, we've got inbound filters and outbound filters. These are your packet filters with RAS. So clicking on either one gives you the same basic window, and we can add in a filter. So we can filter out traffic based on source address, destination address, protocol, and port. So this gives us far more flexibility for restricting traffic going to and from our computer. Now, if we had two NIC cards in the computer, then we are looking at one of our NIC cards which has both inbound and outbound filters to the one NIC card. If you had a second interface, a second NIC card, you'd have another set of inbound and outbound filters. So you want to be very careful to not get your wires crossed and make sure you are allowing the appropriate traffic through both NIC cards to the internal network or vice versa out to the external network.